I want to thank the UFC fan who have supported me during this time, and thanks to the UFC for the past 7 years.
I get injured in sparring, then I twist my knee.
The UFC's most dominant heavyweight fighter is making waves with a big announcement, but it's not what you think. Francis Ngannou, the knockout artist with a heart of gold, is considering a major career move. But why? Stay tuned to find out. If you're a fan of combat sports, you might be wondering why the former UFC heavyweight champion left the promotion that made him a star. Was it because of money? Was it because of politics? Or was it something else entirely? In this video, we'll uncover the real reason behind Ngannou's departure from the UFC and what it means for the future of MMA. We'll explore the issues that have been brewing between Ngannou and the UFC, the opportunities that other promotions are offering him, and what his decision could mean for the sport as a whole. Stick till the end of this video to find out the truth behind this shocking news that's causing waves throughout the fighting world. Francis Ngannou is one of the most explosive and powerful fighters in MMA. He's got a stunning record of 11 finishes in the UFC and has faced some of the toughest opponents in the heavyweight division. When he left the promotion, he didn't just leave behind his title, he left behind a legacy. So what could have driven a top-ranked heavyweight MMA fighter in the world to leave the UFC, the biggest and most prestigious MMA organization in the world? To understand why Ngannou made his decision to leave the UFC, we have to first look at the issues he's had with the organization. In 2015, Ngannou made his UFC debut and quickly became a fan favorite. He quickly made a name for himself in the UFC with a series of devastating knockouts, including his debut against Luis Enrique. His raw power and athleticism made him an instant fan favorite, and it wasn't long before he was touted as the next big thing in the heavyweight division. Ngannou's most famous victory came in 2017 when he knocked out Alistair Overeem with one of the most brutal uppercuts in UFC history.
Mick Maynard's phone to try to get a matchup with Ngannou.
It was a moment that solidified Ngannou's status as a top contender and earned him a shot at the heavyweight title. But as he rose through the ranks, he began to realize that the UFC didn't offer him the freedom and autonomy he craved.
You guys know how the UFC contract can be. You don't really have a say in that contract. You don't even have a right, so I can't do that.
Despite being one of the most dominant fighters in the sport, Ngannou finally expressed frustration with the UFC's restrictive contracts and lack of respect for fighters. In an interview with ESPN, he explained that he wanted more control over his career, both in and out of the octagon. He wanted to be able to negotiate his own sponsorships, have health insurance for all fighters, and have an athlete advocate who could represent the fighters' interests. But the UFC wasn't willing to budge on these issues. They wanted to maintain their control over the fighters and didn't want to give them too much autonomy. This left Ngannou feeling frustrated and powerless. These issues have led Ngannou to finally part ways with the UFC and explore other options, including PFL and ONE FC.
I say I'm closely.
No, I know, but which is the one that you're close to?
There's PFL and ONE FC.
Wow.
Right now that we are very close.
Ngannou's recent interactions with PFL and ONE FC have been viewed as partnerships, which is something he finds great. He was pleasantly surprised by how the negotiations went so far, with many of the issues he had with the UFC being non-issues with these organizations. They proposed healthcare for all fighters outside sponsorship and fighter advocates at the negotiating table without him having to ask. This is a stark contrast to the UFC, which has faced criticism from fighters over the years over its treatment of fighters and its refusal to allow outside sponsorships, which can be a significant source of income for fighters. But there's more to Ngannou's decision than just finding a good partner. One important factor for him is the opportunity to make an event happen in Africa. He believes it's time to get something out in Africa, where he is from, and where the UFC has been talking about for years but has yet to deliver. His main priority is to build something in Africa. Even if it's not for him, it will be for his people. It's exciting to see Ngannou prioritizing his values and using his platform to create positive change. And it's not just in Africa. He has been an advocate for fighters' rights and fair treatment in the industry. He has spoken out against the UFC's treatment of fighters and the lack of unionization in MMA. By aligning himself with organizations that share his values, Francis Ngannou is sending a message that fighters deserve better. This is a major opportunity for other promotions to capitalize on and something that the UFC has yet to deliver on, despite its promises. In addition to his move away from the UFC, Ngannou is also focusing on a potential boxing match between former WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder. A fight between Ngannou and Wilder would undoubtedly be an exciting event, drawing in fans from both the MMA and boxing worlds. So what is the real reason why Francis Ngannou left the UFC? As we can see, it goes beyond money and is more about autonomy and control over his career. This is a rare move in the world of combat sports, where athletes often have limited leverage and bargaining power. But Ngannou has made it clear that he is not afraid to take risks and stand up for what he believes in.
I do believe that I have that right, at least. That's called freedom.
But what about the UFC's perspective on all this? Dana White, the president of the UFC, has been vocal about his disappointment in Ngannou's decision to leave the promotion. He has suggested that Ngannou was motivated solely by money and had left the promotion to fight lesser opponents after rejecting a deal that would have made him the highest earning heavyweight in UFC history. So, what does all of this mean for the future of MMA? Could Ngannou's departure from the UFC be a turning point for the sport? It's clear that the UFC is the dominant player in the MMA world and has been for years, but Ngannou's situation could be a signal that other promotions are starting to catch up. If PFL or ONE FC can sign Ngannou, it would be a significant coup for them and could lead to other high-profile fighters following suit. Francis Ngannou's decision to leave the UFC is not just about money, but about finding a partner that values and respects him as a partner and shares his vision and values, particularly when it comes to Africa. Ngannou's issues with the UFC's restrictive contracts, lack of healthcare, and lack of action in Africa have led him to explore other options, including PFL and ONE FC. The situation is still developing, and we don't know for sure what will happen next, but what we do know is that Francis Ngannou is a fighter who values respect, partnership, and vision. And whoever he signs with next will have to share those values if they want to work with one of the most dominant heavyweight fighters in MMA today. Francis Ngannou's departure from the UFC could have significant implications for the world of MMA. We'll be keeping a close eye on his next move and the impact it may have on the sport. If you enjoyed this video and want to stay up to date on all the latest MMA news and analysis, make sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.